сколько можно? Ну и тоже. Давай свое. Марапович.
If you're worried about the direction of our country, you should pay close attention to this bill that's working its way through Congress. Because I believe it will set off the biggest market event of this decade. An event that will destroy the chances of millions of Americans ever having a comfortable retirement. This might sound like hyperbole, but according to Bloomberg, the implications of this bill are enormous. They say more than $40 trillion of retirement savings is at risk. The Economist said this could lead to a profound shift that happens only once in a generation. And the Wall Street Journal warned that investors are woefully unprepared for what's coming. By the time you see this message, this bill may have already become law. That means we don't have much time to prepare. Look, I will tell you, if you think the gap between the rich and poor is getting out of control in America, you've seen nothing yet. Millions of unprepared Americans will be caught off guard, and they will be shocked by how quickly this will happen. This is especially true for those approaching retirement, because they won't have time to recover from this blow. This is already in motion, and nobody will be able to stop it. But while you can't control what politicians in Washington are doing, there is one simple move you can make today to protect your money and even come out of this event wealthier than ever before. And I'll tell you exactly what this move is in just a moment, because I believe this one single move will be the most important financial decision.
Я, наверное, недальновидный, просто мне так неинтересно жить, понимаешь? Оно просто не по-мужски, понимаешь? Да, да, да. То есть, когда тебе, да, да, да. Это вот он о чем сейчас говорит? О том, чтобы тебе на тройную про себя так думать тоже, да, да, понимаешь? Он себя просто мудрите. Ну, да, вот, да, вот он себе так думал. Да, помогать надо, да, себе, да, ну, другим надо помогать. Но ты не забывай, что с собой такое можно жертвовать. Я вообще поражен, ты смотри, то есть как бы, как это жертвовать собой, ты себя просто тренируешь, правильно? То есть, да, понимаешь, эта женщина жертвует собой, она умереть может, она грудью кормит, она всю жизнь как дура, время все свое отдает каким-то непонятным штукам каким-то, никому не нужным, да. Ну как бы да, типа того. Да, понимаю. В нормальном виде даже деваться некуда, потому что ни интеллекта нормально нету, понимаешь? Да, тело слабенькое, маленькое, да. Ну нет, тренировать можно так-то и так тоже, конечно. Но такая, оно как бы, как смотри сам, короче. Тогда, не знаю, а зачем это так? А зачем? Получается, что? Ну,
According to Deutsche Bank, we're sitting on a time bomb right now. I believe it is this bill. But while most Americans are in the dark, some of the savviest investors in the world, they're already. I'm talking about people like billionaire hedge fund manager Paul Jones. He's one of the best investors in the world. He already made his move, putting an estimated $183 million into this opportunity. And he's planning to invest around $275 million more. Michael Burry agrees. He's the famous investor, personally made $100 million. Betting against the housing market in 2008. He already invested at least $280 million in preparation for this event. Billionaire Stephen Druckenmiller, who went 4 decades of investing without a single losing year, is also making the same move. Ray Dalio, he manages the world's largest hedge fund. He's making this move. And so is Warren Buffett, considered by many to be the best investor ever. I want you to think about that. These are some of the smartest investors in the world. Do they know something you don't? I believe they do. They're making this move because they understand what's coming. They understand the implications of this bill that I call the Wealth Transfer Act. And I want to share this with you today because every American deserves to know all the details about this bill that's working its way through Congress as I speak. Hello, my name is Tika Tiwari. I grew up in the United Kingdom, and when I turned 16, I left for the United States to chase my American dream. At the time, I had $150 in my pocket and literally the clothes that I was wearing. After flipping burgers, bagging groceries, even hauling cargo on a loading dock, I finally got a job on Wall Street, and I rose through the ranks very quickly and became the youngest VP of a major investment bank in the United States. After 15 years on Wall Street, I left and joined a network of independent financial experts whose only goal is to help everyday people like yourself reach their financial goals. The team of experts I'm a part of has predicted 9/11, the dot-com bust, and called the top of the market in 2008. And today, I'm here to make what could be my biggest prediction yet. You see, I believe this bill will set in motion the most important investment trend of our decade. Soon, the American dream that I was able to achieve will be out of reach for millions of Americans, and I will not let that happen, at least without warning you about what's coming. Before I tell you how to prepare, first, I think it's important to understand what's going on behind the scenes, because I suspect you won't get the real story from the mainstream media and what's happening right now. Friends, it's madness. Over the last year or so, the U.S. government spent a total of $6 trillion to combat the pandemic. That's more money than the U.S. spent in World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined. We have never, ever seen such reckless spending. It is truly unprecedented, and we all know that money, it doesn't grow on trees. So where are they getting all of these trillions of dollars? Are they taxing the middle class? No, that would be political suicide. Instead, they're getting that money from our central bank, which is printing dollars like it's monopoly money. Take a look at our currency in circulation and checking accounts. You can clearly see this measure of money supply has slowly been rising over the decades. But then last year, it exploded an incredible 378%. We've never seen this type of parabolic rise in our money supply in such a short time. Never, even across 2 world wars. What's worse, this tsunami of cash is hitting our economy at a time when we're already seeing one of the sharpest economic recoveries in history. You see, our economy went into recession only because the pandemic forced businesses to shut down. Since they started reopening, we've seen a massive V-shaped recovery. In fact, there's so much pent-up demand with millions of Americans just sick and tired of being locked down. They're ready to start spending again. And on the surface, it seems like a great thing. But according to legendary investor and billionaire Steve Druckenmiller, this is actually a recipe for disaster. He said, if I was Darth Vader and I wanted to destroy the U.S. economy, I would do aggressive spending in the middle of an already hot economy. In fact, that is already having major consequences for millions of Americans. Have you noticed you're paying a lot more at the gas station and the grocery store? Maybe your landlord told you had to increase your rent, or you're struggling to pay for your kids' or your grandkids' education. Not to mention that the price of prescription drugs is rising faster than the price of any other medical good or service. In fact, prices of nearly everything seem to be getting out of control. Bacon is up 8.4%. Milk is up 7.5%. Gas, it's up 45%. Household furniture up 8.6%. Used cars and trucks are up a whopping 45%. Home prices are rising faster than ever before. Diapers, clothes, toilet paper, it's all getting more expensive. Prices are rising virtually everywhere you look. Now, authorities like the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Central Bank, they're going to tell you it's nothing to worry about. They say this is a temporary phenomenon. The inflation is
Значит, нехватка мужского. То есть не хватает людям просто мозгов, понимаешь? Ну, да, понимают. Да, типа того, да. Поэтому, да, понимаете.
Back then, the head of the Federal Reserve even said, and I quote, "We do not expect significant spillovers from the subprime market to the rest of the economy or to the financial system." Of course, we all know what happened next. Millions of Americans lost their home, and $12.8 trillion of wealth was wiped out in one of the greatest economic crises of our nation. To this day, many Americans are still suffering because they blindly believed what the authorities told them. So the worst thing you can do right now is put your financial future in the hands of a bunch of bureaucrats who are, quite frankly, out of touch with reality. Are you going to believe what you're seeing with your own eyes? Or are you going to rely on the authorities? The answer to this question will have huge implications for the quality of your financial future. Please understand, I'm not the only one who thinks inflation is here to stay. Many executives who actually make decisions to raise prices are explicitly saying inflation is here to stay. I'm talking about people like the CEO of ConAgra, one of the largest food companies in America. What does he say? He says, will ConAgra raise prices? The short answer is yes. Even Warren Buffett admitted the same thing. In his last annual meeting, he said, we're seeing very substantial inflation. We're raising prices. People are raising prices to us, and it's being accepted. Does that sound transitory to you? Mohammed Al-Aryan, the chief economic advisor at Allianz SE, he said, I have a whole list of companies that have announced price increases that have told us they expect further price increases, and they expect them to stick. Inflation is not going to be transitory. The few mainstream media that still report unbiased news have started to warn of a new crisis. The Guardian over in Britain wrote, U.S. inflation accelerates to a 13%.
Да, какой survive, как
The Wall Street Journal
Да.
wrote, higher inflation is here to stay.
Ну да.
For
Ой, это не
years.
надо.
And the Hill wrote, Democrats' reckless spending causes rampant inflation, falling wages, and spiraling debt. But look, with inflation getting out of control, is it any wonder most people are in debt up to their eyeballs? Most Americans don't even have enough cash to pay for unexpected bills, like an emergency car repair, or even a simple medical bill. Only 39% of Americans could pay a $1,000 emergency expense. Meanwhile, billionaires like Jeff Bezos are making so much money, they literally don't know what to do with it. He just bought a 417-foot super yacht worth an estimated $500 million. A yacht so big it comes with its own support yacht and a helipad. And after
Тебе-то какое
he
дело?
spent another
О,
$5.5 billion
князь.
to spend a few minutes in space. I don't begrudge how he spends his money, but we have to ask ourselves, why is this happening? Why are the super rich getting even richer than ever, while tens of millions of Americans are just being left behind? I can tell you, it's not because capitalism doesn't work. It's not because we're not spending enough money, or any other reason you might have heard from the media. The truth is, inflation, it's great for the rich, but not so much for everyday folks. I want you to really think about this. Who benefits the most when prices go up? all the government spending and money printing is pushing assets like stocks, collectibles, and real estate higher. Who owns those assets? Well, the rich. I mean, I personally own a collection of luxury watches. And I can tell you, just over the last year alone, the prices of some of my watches have doubled. So do you think I'm worried about inflation? I'm not. It's making me wealthier because I own assets that go up with inflation or even higher than inflation. Meanwhile, everyday folks are stuck with wages that cannot keep up. Take a look at this chart of minimum wage, for example. When you adjust for inflation, wages have been dropping since 1968. That's over 50 years. Sure, they raised the minimum wage 14 times since then, but inflation rose at a faster rate. So wages have not kept up with the cost of living.
Да, понимает он тебя.
This is the reason why families now need two income earners. 4 years ago, they didn't know. This is the real reason why millions of Americans are being left behind, while the rich get obscenely richer. I believe this bill I'm holding in my hand will make this much.
Ну это тоже, это уже тебя не меняет, кстати.
Понимаешь? Because I will tell you, those who do nothing
я тебе предупредил, знаю это.
The good news is you don't have to be one of them. I'm going to tell you exactly what you need to do in just a moment. Like I mentioned before, I'll even give you the name and ticker of my #1 investment for this inflation wave. And I'll give it to you with no strings attached, because we don't have much time. You see, with inflation raging out of control, you think the government would be trying to cut spending. No, that's not what they're doing. They're pouring gasoline on the fire. And that brings me to this bill. Remember, just in the last year, the government has spent more than we spent. World War I, World War II, and the Vietnam War combined, $6 trillion. And now with this bill, they're planning to spend another $3.5 trillion. This is the bill that's working its way through Congress as I speak. It's a $3.5 trillion reconciliation plan that would fund every major program President Joe Biden wanted to include in his original infrastructure plan. Self-proclaimed socialist Senator Bernie Sanders called it the most significant piece of legislation passed since the Great Depression. Combined with a separate bipartisan package, it's expected to bring the total of new spending to a mind-melting $4.5 trillion. If we're already seeing prices of everything explode higher, what do you think is going to happen when this additional $4.5 trillion hits our economy? An economy that's already recovering at record speed. You don't have to be an MIT genius to figure this out. As Senator Mitch McConnell says, this bill will make our current inflationary mess look like small potatoes. Look, if you think he's just saying that because he's a Republican, let's set politics aside. Because many experts believe the inflation we're seeing now is just the beginning of something much worse. Deutsche Bank's global head of research just issued a report saying that inflation is about to explode, and that the global economy is sitting on a time bomb. Here's what they said. That stood the test of time over a millennium had not been suspended, and explosive growth in debt, financed largely by central banks, is likely to lead to higher inflation. Peter Schiff, the CEO of Euro-Pacific Capital, he warns the U.S. is about to experience one of the greatest inflationary periods in world history. Michael Burry, who predicted the 2008 global financial crisis and even made $100 million betting on a collapse, is also sounding the alarm on inflation. He even compared America's current trajectory to Germany's path to hyperinflation in the 1920s. Here's how he described what happened in the initial stages of hyperinflation in Germany. Business and the stock market were booming. Side by side with wealth were pockets of poverty. Greater numbers of people were remaining on the outside of the easy money, looking in,
Будущее? Нет,
not
не
being
будущее.
able to
Нет,
enter.
да. Я тебе говорю, можно прожить вообще просто, мы, да. Там, да. То есть, он для про себя говорит, да. Вы ведь мудрые, вот видишь, понимаешь? Ну, наоборот, да нет. Нет, в том-то и дело, что не мучаясь, понимаешь, да. Ну и что будешь делать? Ну, да. Понимаете? Так нет, просто ты такой, ой, как все тяжело, блин. Спать лег, вот после пришел с тренировки, ой, бля, я сейчас сдохну, блин, вообще. Лег, упал, проснулся с утра, ну ломит как бы, ну ничего, ну ладно, болит на следующий день. И потом болит. Все, через 3 дня встал такой, блин, а что такое, все. И настолько кретин, что даже забыл про это. Он тебя понимает. И так всегда, понимаешь, это и есть мужская жизнь. И так всю жизнь происходит. В детстве зубы выпали, еще что-нибудь там, да, я понимаю, да. То есть, да, понимаю. То есть это нормально, хорошо, это, да. Женщинам тоже приходится так, да. Ну тогда иди на войну отправляй, или еще лучше кого-нибудь отправить на войну тогда, да. Ну буквально, поняла тебя, да. Человечество спасай тогда, да. Не знаю от кого, да. Ладно, проехали, короче. Живи тогда свою жизнь, да. Да, понимаю, короче. Вот видишь как, почти наоборот уже сказал, да. Я просто тоже знаю, да, наверное, ну да, типа тренер.